Hello again, I am Blunty. Now, I was holding off talking about the next-gen consoles again until we had the next big info burst, which was to be a PS5 reveal event from Sony. Originally scheduled for the 4th of June, they've now delayed it because, well, I mean, it depends on how much faith you have in Sony's executives, really. As I tweeted when they announced it, on the one hand, it may be a politically aware move in an effort to give way to rather more important events going on right now, or, as I suspect is more in line with Sony's actual corporate culture, they don't want to try and compete with all the noise in the media right now, or deal with backlash. They just want everybody talking about the PS5, and right now there's too much noise out there. This delay is about them, not about everyone else. Make no mistake about that. If you think that's too cynical of me, well, so be it. Whatever the reasoning, it's delayed, and they haven't announced a new date yet. And of course, in the vacuum that anticipated new batch of information has left behind, I've been seeing a lot of fanboys doubling down on already exhausting and fighting and idiotic arguments, arguing about what system will be more powerful before we even have a remotely complete picture is a bit silly, but I get it, I do. We all love a bit of speculation, imagining what the next generation of gaming will bring. We're excited by it, we want to know, so we make guesses and within that healthy speculation, there is, of course, the smooth brains who can't resist their silly urges for tribal warfare, flying the flag of a corporate entity as if it was life or death on what hardware someone else likes to play video games on versus what hardware you like to play video games on. And if you've taken a sideways glance at this stuff recently, you'll have noticed that the Sony side of the fence have latched hard onto the mighty world-ending military superiority of the magical super fast SSD. The PS5 SSD is the difference maker, they say. The PS5 SSD will make games possible that nothing else can possibly make happen. Even the high-end PC master race gamers will be left in the pale blue dust, their flesh burned away by the blinding angelic light of Sony's innovative storage drive. But here's the thing about that. An SSD makes a difference. There's no denying it. PC gamers have known this for a very, very long time now. We've been using SSDs for years and years and years, and that's why anyone who knows what they're doing always installs their operating system on an SSD. It makes a huge difference in how snappy Windows or Linux or OS X or whatever feels. There's just no comparison. Trying to run Windows off a mechanical hard drive is a nightmare of sluggishness compared to running it off even the most basic level SSD. And most dedicated PC gamers have at the very least two game drives. One, a traditional hard drive, because getting these in huge capacities is pretty cheap these days, and it means we can have a massive library of even the bloatiest AAA titles ready to go, and we will pair that with a fast SSD. These days, usually an NVMe M.2 SSD. If you don't know what those acronyms means, maybe you shouldn't be arguing about SSDs at all. And if you've upgraded in the last 6 months or so, maybe it's even screaming through a PCIe 4.0 capable of 5,000 megabits per second read speeds. And we use this drive for installs of games that actually benefit from the hugely boosted read speeds, mostly open world games and highly detailed AAA titles. And the reason we split it this way between a large mechanical hard drive and a very, very fast SSD is not every game even benefits from SSD slightly. But I have personally tested and in fact demonstrated on other videos the difference in load times and even texture pop-in an SSD can make over a hard drive on certain games. I've even shown the clear difference between an ordinary SSD and a super high-end, super duper fast fancy one. That second difference isn't much, by the way, a second or two of load time here and there, but you can see it, you can feel it, and you can show it to people. SSDs do make a difference. Faster SSDs do make a difference. And all of that is nice. In fact, it's fantastic. But storage speed, and listen closely, I'm going to say it slow, storage speed is entirely divorced from performance power. For example, and this is one of the games I used to test this on, while the beautiful, if uninspired, Shadow of the Tomb Raider will certainly start faster and load levels faster with a faster drive, the frame rate will be identical on otherwise identical hardware. Of course it will. And yes, I can hear the canned counter-argument already, but that game wasn't designed for the PS5's magical SSD. And you're right, a game designed specifically to take full advantage of what the PS5's storage speed can enable will tell a different story. It will perhaps do something that no other console hardware on the shelf can do. How big of a difference that makes to the actual game is still to be told, but loading in more stuff faster, loading in more textures, more models, more whatever it is, faster and faster and faster, faster than anything else on the planet, it doesn't mean the CPU and GPU can do more with that information. Yes, it can load stuff back and forth faster than anything else, perhaps, allegedly, but if the CPU and GPU are busy doing other stuff, it's kind of pointless anyway. Let me give you a metaphor. Filling a bucket with water. You can use a garden hose, or you can use a fire hose. It doesn't make the bucket carry any more water, it just makes the bucket overflow faster if you try and use the fire hose to do it. You fill the bucket faster, and it overflows faster. And there's the rub, and this is why it's silly to argue about this at this point. From what we know so far, and I do stress this again, because as I started out, we do not have a full picture of either the PS5 or the Xbox Series X yet, but what we know so far is they're going to share the same basic AMD architecture structure. They are both, and we have this from official sources already, they are both based on slightly different custom modifications of CPUs that PC gamers are already using, by the way. CPUs based on AMD's Zen 2 architecture, which to PC gamers is known as the Ryzen 3000 series of desktop CPUs, which are superb, by the way. They are fantastic for gaming. Some of the absolute best bang for buck you can possibly stick in your gaming PC. They're amazing. And beside that will sit Radeon RDNA 2 GPU tech, which we're also yet to see in the PC gaming space, where it's being referred to as Big Navi or Navi 2. But it is, of course, an evolution of what's already here, the existing RDNA 1, if you like. The current generation of RDNA GPUs, the RX 5000 series of graphics cards, is also very, very good. But unlike the CPUs, which have put Intel on the back foot somewhat, AMD's efforts to unseat NVIDIA, to battle NVIDIA, have been somewhat less effective. The RX 5000 series cards are good, just no real complaints about them. It's just NVIDIA Team Green are still overwhelmingly the more popular choice. But the point is, though, both Xbox and PlayStation are sharing the same basic technologies, same generation of CPU architecture, the same generation of GPU architecture. When it comes to the CPU and GPU, you can apples for apples, if you like. And from what we have already seen, Xbox are running the more powerful configuration. The Xbox Series X runs at a higher clock frequency. It runs faster. The Xbox Series X has more compute units. The Xbox Series X has a faster and wider system memory bus. And while I have a video all about why this number isn't the whole story, which you should watch if you haven't already because it's kind of important to keep in mind, the Xbox will do more than 12 teraflops, while the PS5 is just above 10. And again, please watch the teraflops don't matter video if you haven't seen it already. But there is just no way a less powerful CPU and GPU combination, as the PS5 seems to be, with a slower system memory bus, which the PS5 is listed as, can be compensated for just by having a faster SSD. That's just not how shit works. Ever. Never has done. Never will. Can't. All of the benefits of a super fast storage drive cannot ever compensate for a lack of raw processing power when you're talking about gaming. And for the third time, I'm going to say it, we don't know the whole story of either product yet. We can only talk about what we know, what we can draw certain estimations based on that from. And frankly, I would absolutely love to be wrong. Fact is, I game mostly on my PC and my Nintendo Switch. That is a beautiful pairing. In multi-platform console stuff, I love the Switch. I'll take the downgrading graphics for convenience and flexibility of the Switch quite often, almost every time, as a matter of fact, when it comes to just choosing a console to play on. And for games where raw performance and even graphics matter, or it's just not a type of game I care about playing handheld that much, I'll go for PC, absolutely. So that leaves my Xbox One X out in the cold pretty often. And if I wasn't a YouTuber, I'd have a hard time justifying owning it over any other gear. But the fact is, I'm a YouTuber and I can justify owning it because, well, what if I need to do a comparison? I better get it. I'm a bit of a gear whore, aren't we all? And my PS4 Pro, I only ever really use it for exclusives. And that's why I'd love to be wrong here. I want the PS5 to be a brutal, world-ending beast, more than I care about the Xbox Series X beating it. So, so for those of you who have already called me an Xbox fanboy, or so Microsoft are paying you to say this, I want the PS5 to be as good as it possibly can be. I want it to be the best because I'm going to be using it for exclusives, and I want those exclusives to be the absolute brutalist, mind-blowingest, extraordinary things that can possibly be. Because for the handful of games I'll be playing on the PlayStation that I truly want the PlayStation 5 for, are games that only it will be running. At least for a while. Hello, impending PC release of Horizon Zero Dawn, and hello, angry Sony fanboys who are angry about PC players getting to play a game they played a few years back. It's not fair. I'm mad. But just in case you're still kind of angry about what we're talking about here, let's play it like this. The Xbox One X is significantly more powerful than the PS4 Pro. It runs more games at native 4K, while the PS4 Pro outputs 4K. Sure, on many titles, it actually renders them internally at much lower resolutions, and uses clever upscaling tricks, very clever upscaling tricks, let's be fair, to do fake 4K. And this is all well known. These are facts on the ground. It's all well demonstrated, documented, irrefutable, simple facts. Xbox One X, more powerful. But jamming a faster drive into the PS4 Pro could never make it suddenly magically more capable of running a real, true native 4K game where it couldn't before. Because it's not the storage speed or even the memory speed that's holding it back from being able to do that. It's CPU, GPU. And if you take nothing else away from this video, remember that. If you have headspace for more, remember this also. The Nintendo Switch is, and I've said this many times before, wildly underpowered compared to both other current consoles. It is a toy compared to even a mildly capable gaming PC, but it is still hugely popular. I love mine, and I've got way more powerful hardware all around me right now. I'm literally surrounded by hardware that's more powerful than the Nintendo Switch in every possible conceivable way. But it is still hugely popular as a gaming device, and every time there's a multi-platform game announced, you will find a lot more people asking about the Nintendo Switch version, when we're getting it, when it's coming out, how's it going to run, how does it compare, because people want to get it on the Nintendo Switch because of the benefits that platform has. And the benefits they're talking about, the benefits they're thinking about, have nothing at all to do with processing power or SSD speed or anything. Games are more than graphics. Games are more than how fast you can load in rock textures as you blurrily zoom through a forested canyon in next-gen Anthem. I don't know why Anthem came to mind when I was saying that, but it did. Man, I wish that game had been good. And yes, advancements like the PS5's super fast storage can and will enable game devs to do some things they've had to avoid trying to do, or try to work around or pare back on current gen hardware. But that's pretty much all about presentation. How fast they can load things in, no load between levels, pulling in textures more quickly. None of that has to do with gameplay. That's presentation. And if you think presentation is more vital than gameplay, then you don't really deserve to call yourself a gamer. I'm not saying it's not nice to have better presentation or more options in presentation. I'm just saying it doesn't really make games better. And finally, just like the periodically relatively stagnant nature of console gaming that sort of jumps ahead and then stays in place for like up to 7 years, just like that holds back what PC gaming can be capable of. And you've heard this before, console games, they hold back PC gaming. And it's true to a certain extent. Everything else in gaming, especially multi-platform games, which, look around, they are the vastly more popular titles and more profitable for developers and publishers, they will have to balance what the PS5's SSD is capable of doing with the needs of every other platform they're making a game for anyway. So it doesn't matter if the SSD is fast. Only the first-party titles are going to matter for that. Everything else is going to be a compromise anyway. So in the end, it's likely that the PS5 will have, like, a small handful of games, maybe a dozen, call it 2 a year over its 6, 7, 8 year lifespan. Will take full advantage of that magical SSD. Meanwhile, it will be running all other games with slightly more compromises for resolution, for frame rate compared to the more powerful competition, just down to CPU speed, more GPU compute units, better GPU speed, and faster, wider memory bandwidth advantages that the Xbox Series X has. So every time a Sony fanboy screeches about how amazing this SSD is going to be, yeah, but it's not going to make that big of a difference, I promise you. Hopefully this has been interesting and / or informative, and at the very least, a bit of perspective for you next time you feel the need for a bit of old-fashioned brand slave console warfare argument time. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty, and as always, an extra special super duper terafloppy thanks to my patrons scrolling up above there. I will catch you next time.